Hello and welcome back to another interview for Project Seed Money. My name is Sharissa Bradley, and I am so excited that you are here. On this episode, we are going to be interviewing Loretta Graham. She is an author and an aspiring children's book author as well. I hope you enjoy this interview. Thank you so much. Welcome, Loretta. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking time to be with us today. And I'm just very grateful for you and what we're building together. So thank you for being on the Project Seed Money channel. And I would love to just welcome you and thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sure, it is such a pleasure, but I feel so blessed to have met you. I loved your presentation during the Women in Publishing conference. I was so impressed, number one, by your passion to support women. It was just so intense. It was so real. And intense was really what got my attention.
Thank you so much for saying that. I've struggled my whole life with just even the identity of like what it means to be a woman and my desire to be a woman. So I really struggled with not wanting this role, not wanting the challenge that you have to overcome just to be a woman in a woman's body on this planet at this time. And because I faced that challenge for so long, I knew the only way for me to get out of it was to really race the heck out of it and then not only embrace it, but then turn and help as many women as I can. That is really truly where my passion comes from, is my own denial of my own identity and then re-embracing, coming to understand that being a woman is probably the most powerful thing you can do. And really embracing that is
Yeah.
power.
Yes. Women are so beautiful, so powerful, so creative. As also, we hold creation, is what I'm trying to say. Incubator of life. A lot of women don't want to hear that, but it's so true. God trusts us with life, to repopulate the world. I mean, without us, there wouldn't be anybody in the world. Without our cooperation, is what I'm saying. Without our cooperation, understanding our identity, not just as people makers, but just as these compassionate beings. We have a mind and a heart for love. We have a mind and a heart to give and to receive. I mean, I wasn't a tomboy, but I like the way boys had the freedom, it always looked like, to do things and go places and climb the trees and get out of work and all those things, as kids, and the sisters had to do it. And I tried to make sure that my daughters didn't feel that way about their brothers. And so the brothers, everybody, kind of worked together at doing things. At least that was my objective. I don't know if they'll agree at all, but that was my objective. I'm an actor, you know that. And one time, a gentleman I was working with, Ken McGregor, who some people might know because he's pretty well known, and he's a phenomenal teacher. And I was on stage, and he yelled, "Stand in your gravitas. You don't have to do anything else, Loretta. Stand in your gravitas." And I'm telling you, that shook me to my core. And I don't think I've been the same ever since he said that to me. And that was, many years ago now, 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in there. But just the fact that he noticed something about me. So don't come with some little mousy voice and don't come, hiding behind the script. No. Stand in your gravitas. And you can say that to little girls, you can say that to little boys too, stand in your gravitas. Everybody has this unique purpose. Nobody's the same. All the people that we peopled in the world, and every person is different. And that is crazy amazing too. Even if they're twins, each twin, triplets, they're all different. They all have something unique about them. And so do we to share. So that's why with my writing, I told you like this 10 to 15 little memoirs I've written every year in my journals, and I save them all. And nobody can tell those stories or reproduce those stories but me. And I wouldn't want my children to try. Oh my God, I wish mom had just, yeah, I'm going to do it. Okay, I am absolutely doing I'm not leaving anything to chance, And I was telling you this one story I wrote as a Kwanzaa performance at the Black History Museum. And my God, that was like 15 or 20 years ago. And I've sang it. I wrote a song for it. I had a friend, she illustrated it. The little girl looks exactly like me as a little girl, wearing glasses and everything. And I performed that live so much that I almost felt as though I published it already. It does have a copyright, but that is sitting there. It's like I'm pregnant. I'm like an elephant. I'm pregnant for 9 years. I don't know how long they stay pregnant, but I have got all these books and most of them are completed. But then life happened, my children were growing up or one of my sons was sick and there was a bunch of things going on and they were just sitting there. They had to sit there. And then my husband got diagnosed with, the dementia and all these other things. And I, spent time kind of doing things. One of my sons had taken me to see the redwoods in San Francisco and all this cool stuff and Golden Gate Bridge. So we went there and walked through the forest and hugged the trees. And what I'm trying to say is we did things, just traveled around and did things and until he couldn't. And then I turned into a 24-hour caregiver. And of course I wasn't writing and I was just taking care of my husband and I needed to do that. And I never thought that was going to end. Actually, I really didn't. I found all kinds of, care that came to us, but I couldn't get him out anymore. And I even was growing up a little bit. I said, you know what, if I can't get him to the doctor, I can't get there myself. So I said, whoever you got coming to see him, you got to see me too, because I need to see a doctor. Because I found out I had something going on with my thyroid and I was tired all the time. My hair was falling out and I even felt the goiter thing. I was really getting sick. And so I had to learn really how to take care of myself as I was taking care of him and stay healthy because in the middle of that, I wrote this ABZs of Sanity, actually before it got real bad, because I was just going from A to Z. I was trying to do something quick. But I talked to the reader and I said, there's a series of guideposts and they're beneficial to many people who struggle with a disease that has, now I said, infected them in some physical, mental, and emotional and detrimental way and affected the people with whom they are in relationship. So, it was that dis-ease that infects us, but then it's the way we react that affects us. And we have a choice how you're going to allow these things to affect you. And with God's grace, he allowed me, to transform a marriage that was not always the best, but transform it into, like love and sacrifice. And I know people don't like that word because I don't like it either. It's an ugly word. But it's sacrifice in a relationship. It's sacrifice sometimes with the mothers to children, fathers to children, husbands to wives. You're making sacrifices. Everything is not always roses and wonderful and all this. You're making sacrifices. And I don't care whether you have money or whether you don't, you have to make sacrifices here and there. I remember the kids would have these parent-teacher meetings. And I had, let me see, 2 in high school, 2 in middle school, 1 in grade school, something like that. And sometimes they'd have them all on the same night. It was hilarious. So I'd run to the high school, then I'd run to the middle school, then I'd run to the grade school. And I said, you know what, people, this is ridiculous. I was talking to the administrator because I said, I don't know how many people only have 1 kid, but I don't. I have 5, okay? And to have all these meetings on the same night it's killing me, okay? And eventually they did change a little bit. So there were maybe one after another. But that was crazy. And then all the little games you tried to show up for, and they ended up driving all the friends to all the games. And oh my gosh. So all those, that's sacrifice. I'm only saying that to remind people, what is a sacrifice? That crap is sacrifice. You're not doing anything for yourself either. You can hardly, I used to be so tired that my only prayer I could ever manage to say was, dear God, don't let these kids find me dead tomorrow. morning. I'm so tired. I don't think I can make it. That's how tired I was. I was exhausted. Oh my God.
That's not the frame of mind that we're going to be putting out books from. That's not the place that we're going to be putting the energy. And in the crux of motherhood, when you're doing these things, if our listeners are in that state and in that place and trying to put out
Oh,
books, think of this as the time where you're writing in your journal, you're processing the information,
that's
you're
right.
cataloging it, you're keeping record, but the output, the sacrifices, those are going to your family, to your kids, to the meetings. It
Right.
can't be.
No, I wasn't sitting down writing at night. I was, like I said, falling into the pillow, and that was
Yes. And doing a recap at the end of the
the
year.
year.
This is what I learned.
Exactly. The end of the,
Yes.
that's the truth. That's all you had time for. And it's okay.
Did
It's
you
okay.
did you always find solace in writing, like even as a child, or did you pick up writing at some point in life?
I always wrote as a little girl. You know, it was like little letters to Jesus, little things like that. What was the first one? It was a poem. I can't remember, but I even found it little handwriting. And then I went to Catholic school, and for religion class, sometimes we had to write a prayer before, and everybody would ask me, Loretta, write a prayer for me, write a prayer. I was very good at writing prayers. So everybody, I gave a prayer to everybody, and that was fun. It wasn't work for me. You know, that was just fun. I love to use my imagination, and everything came to life for me. It really did. Like even dust particles with the sun hitting the dust. And I could just see like this little fairyland of creatures. It sounds terrible.
I also look at that when the sun rays are coming through the window and you can see the little dust dancing.
Yeah.
You have such a creative spirit. Do you find that you write more in that fiction, like more play, or do you find that you write more in the, like, I'm writing my own story myself more?
Yeah, well, like the Nia is about a little girl who, and in fact, this is way before any of the women who are in politics ran for anything. At the end, one of the poems in her story, there's a sign that says Nia for president. She wants to be president. And like I said, I mean, I wrote this story like at least 16 years ago. Yeah. And it's a poem, but it's a story poem. And I dedicated it to all the children who dream and believe in their dreams. Here's a picture of her. And this is my friend Debbie. And here's a picture Nia for president.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I love her little crown.
Oh, and well, yes, her crown. This is the one with the really kind of look like me with the glasses.
She's so cute.
And I don't wear glasses anymore, but I used to. And the illustrations were done by a friend of mine, Deborah Ryman. And when you sent me the older writer work, I sent it to her too, because we're both in that older lady category. And I'm telling you, for anybody who thinks they're over the hill at 50, stop it. Stop it. Stop it right now. There's no such thing as over the hill, because I'm telling you, when you get over that hill, glory to God, there's another hill, okay? And you just keep going over. You just keep going, okay? But then I said the book is dedicated to the courageous children of the world living with and overcoming challenges bigger than they are. And that was then and now, and unfortunately, it'll be forever, because we see it every day where children have to live in and under awful conditions, and somehow they still find time. You give them something, a little ball or something, and a little string, and they'll stop and play with it, you know. But anyway, yeah, because there was always hope in a child. They don't lose hope. And that's something that we can never do as adults either, lose hope. So even at 74, I haven't lost hope that all my little Mias and all my little, I wrote a story, and I'm telling you, it is a Rosh Hashanah story where these little boys, Zaya and Sammy. And they, when they were little, these were my grandkids who are in their 20s now. But anyway, they were rolling down the hill and they went out with Safta, which is what my grandchildren call me. Safta and Saba. Now they only called him Grandpa, but I named him Saba in the story. And they're, they go to this big field, they're having lunch, the kids go play, they explore. So I mention all the cool things they find and all this stuff. And then they hear this bleeding and they find this little goat with a bell around his little neck and all these papers with him stuck in his little collar. And somehow they bring him back to where the grandparents are. It's a lot of dialogue, which I didn't think I was good at, but I really put a lot of rich dialogue where the kids were playing and talking and all that. And the grandparents were talking about what they wanted to do next with their lives. And so it was a really nice family story. But then the kids find this little goat and they bring him back. And then Safta and Saba relate the story where the goat takes on the sins of the community. And it's Rosh Hashanah. That's what it is. But anyway, and somebody will correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. But I really love the Jewish people. I really love the holidays. And that was something I really wanted to give honor to. I don't have the story near me, but I'm a lot more factual people when you read it again.
I love that. And your stories, they're not just fictional. It does seem like they're very much inspired by real life events, real true stories, real encouragement, real inspiration, and really getting more voices out into the community. You're trying to educate, it seems.
Oh, yes. You have to entertain and educate. I mean, that's the writer, that's the actor. All creatives are like that. We just don't want you to look at something and go, oh, that's pretty. No, you want to be able to, well, what does that mean? What's the lesson in that painting? What is that sculpture telling me? I mean, of course, we want all of our work to matter. Art matters. Your ideas matter. Your life matters. What you have to say, your voice matters. At that conference, I met these ladies, 82, 86, just got finished publishing their first book and, all this. And so, no, I'm not 80, but I'm 74. And I don't know what that means. I'm like 74. I don't know what that means. It looks like it to me. Okay. Trust me. But because I've been 73 and 72 and 52 and I'm getting older and I'm praising God for that. I'm not dyeing my gray hair anymore. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm just not anymore. And it's reality. And I mean, and when you find like old headshots and I've got this a very crazy, very good looking wig or hair thing I was wearing. And I looked great. I had these commercials and, I looked great, but they'll have to take me the way I am right now, So that's just the way it is.
It's inspiring for me because I'm just not even quite 40 yet. But I'm thinking about my next 40 years and I'm thinking about the goals that I want to set for myself and the things that I want to do. And it's inspiring to think that there is no over the hill. There is no such thing. I can continue to plan and know that it's okay for me to continue to plan. I do want to touch on, you have these books that are kind of in production. They're a work in progress. You're working through them. Let's see, 2008, I think, is when you said you published the ABZs, right? Was it
2013.
2013. Okay, so about 12 years ago, you did have and find the courage and the bravery to put out this story. And I guess I want to go back and talk about that a little bit. What gave you that courage and that to get that out?
The impetus was the push, the real, was the fact that my husband had a very dire diagnosis. And I was dreading it. I didn't know what to expect. It was a mystery then to doctors, dementia and Alzheimer's and all those things. And it's still a mystery. We thought we did some trials and all I did was make him sick and he was falling down and all this stuff. And that's still what happens today. They don't have any, big time solutions or cures or anything. And nobody knew if it was going to be a rapid decline or whatever. It was also affecting his job. He worked for the transportation people here in Philadelphia, and he was doing things he didn't remember doing, and it was just he was running into trouble. Nobody knew what was wrong with him. Nobody knew. I didn't know. He didn't know. He just knew he was he would come home, be slamming about 2 o'clock in the morning because he worked late shift, and he'd be slamming. I'd have dinner there for him, but he'd be opening up, closing closets and slamming things in the middle of the night. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm looking for this. Or, I don't know. He was doing things and was sort of out of his mind. And then when he did have this exam in his brain, they showed whatever was going on. And it frightened me, but it also encouraged me because I'm going to be the one that's taking care of him. So how do I deal with something that's insane? I mean, because I need to stay sane. I do. I just really do. And so that's where the ABZs of Sanity was born. I had to make it a quick read and a quick write. So going from A to Z and starting with just the first word I thought of. So it started almost sounds like the beginning of the AA is admitting that something's wrong, and admitting an action was extremely painful experience. Admitting the existence of a mental illness or addiction in my family in the process of enrolling the help of professionals was embarrassing and encouraging at the same time. The speaking forth or revealing that there's a need for change and it must begin now is the evolution of transformation. So it helped me. It transformed me. This was like prayer in action for me. So that was the impetus. It was like, I have to write. I have to do this. I have to think things through. I have to know what my next step is. How do I take care of him? So the other part of the A is, I love alliteration too, but articulate that our lives have become unmanageable. So again, it's like, borrowing from the 12 steps, just admitting your life is unmanageable and you need the ability, you need the help, you need God to come in and really tell you what the next step is. And accepting, it says, perceives a condition or situation accurately and acknowledges its present truth and perception. And learning to accept without judgment allows for the quality of attentiveness. Girl, you're good. Yeah. I mean, I was teaching myself how to be caring, how to be aware, how not to throw crap under the rug, how not to hoard things, how not to, all of a sudden I had to be neat. I had to be careful because now I'm dealing with somebody who, is messing up his medicine and doesn't know where this is and doesn't know where he put this and that. So instead of getting angry, all of us, this part of writing and praying. So from A to Z, it was a prayer. What do I put in this segment? What do I believe about this? There's a power greater than myself that can really restore to sanity. Do I really believe that? It had to be yes or no. Are you in this on your own? Is there really somebody? Is there really something? Is there really some force? Is there really something called love, God, power, almighty, something that can really help you both? Because I was always juggling everything. I thought I had all the answers. I thought I was God, actually. And I'm glad I'm not, because it just would not work for a lot of life. I'm not good. I'm not good as God. Okay.
I always find that my perception of what my life should be is typically wrong. And when I finally decided that I actually don't know what's best or what I like or what would make me happy or what would make me feel at peace, that is actually when my life turned and I started to feel at peace because I realized like, oh, I actually don't know anything. I actually know
And you are, when you look young and gorgeous, but your wisdom is it's such that when you said you're not even 40, I was amazed because you just don't have this, youthful arrogance. You have a humility and a love and an empathy that I'm sure there's other 30-year-olds. In fact, I have a daughter who's in her last year in her 30s, and she's empathetic and loving and all that. But you also meet people that just know everything and they don't respect older people and that kind of thing. And in this B section, it says, when I began to sit still and breathe, and I would breathe out control of my life, and I began to come into focus, and I began to settle and think. Just stop all this busy stuff. Stop the running around. And at the same time, he and I would go to a centering prayer group. And it was at the Dalesford Abbey, which is a hermitage or something like that, with priests that live, in this beautiful place. And we go for walks. We do that every Wednesday. So that was what we did. We went for the walk, we went to centering prayer, we brought our little dog. I mean, we started to have a schedule, something that I used to just do on my own. And now I said, nope, because now he wasn't working, he was home. And I said, nope, you're coming with me. Well, nope, we're getting up, we're going, and we're doing things together. And part of that is praying, and he used to laugh at me because that's all I did was like, oh, I was told, Lord, help me, let God arise. I was always, I knew every scripture, because the alcoholism was just driving me crazy, and it's just, I would go to these Al-Anon, all these things, but it was just driving me crazy. And I just didn't know what to do. So it was the prayer. And even in that second step, because Don did go to AA and I did go to Al-Anon, but I was amazed how he transformed. Even so, his transformation doing the 12 steps gave me some breathing room to write because all of a sudden he was calmer, and he had another outlet. And he had other people to talk to without just being me. And that was amazing. I never thought he could stop drinking. I never thought that was possible. And I just got out of the way because all things are possible, when you believe in God, when you trust God, all things are possible. Even the most unbelievable, crazy situation can stop by God's grace. And I heard about it. I could read about it. I heard television evangelists talking about, but to actually experience it, and the only way you can experience it is to have faith, and the faith that you can't even understand that moves a mountain. It's just like, I have faith. I'm just not going to fear anymore. Because fear and faith, I used to be afraid of everything. Oh, I'm scared. Oh, yeah, yeah. It just used to bother me. I used to like tremble and shake because situations just paralyzed me. And I use that word, even I'll get back to that word in a minute, but paralyzed me to the point where finally somebody said, there's no such thing as having faith and fear at the same time. They are inexclusive. They do not go together. They cannot live together. They do not dwell in the same person or in the same language or in the same sentence. So I had to make a choice. I was going to have faith that I didn't know what it was. It's the substance of things hoped for. It's evidence not seen. That's Hebrews 11. That's what St. Paul says about faith, which made no sense either. It's evidence. Evidence is something you can touch, but it's evidence unseen. It can move mountains. It can do all these things, but it has to be like this, the gravitas of standing still, standing in your powers, standing like on a rock and not being moved by the wind, by the waves, by anything else. And it's a learning experience. Nobody can do it for you. Can you have faith for me, please? I just know it doesn't work.
You can lean on my faith. I can have some faith and confidence enough for us, and you can lean on my faith. But we can't really do that either, right? Because that turns into codependence. That turns into, that can become very.
That's right. That's right. Everyone has that fear, and everyone has to go through it. Go through that darkness, go through that birth canal of fear. I'm sure even the babies before they're born. I don't think I'm gonna do this, okay? Thanks. I'm very comfortable. Whatever mother's doing, why would she want to stop? We can be here forever. It's comfortable,
I used to struggle. I still struggle, but I used to struggle from morning till night with strong anxiety. This kind of constant energy that told me there were things to fear, constantly telling me there were things to fear. And maybe about a year ago, only maybe about a year ago, I learned because I always used to think that the opposite of the anxiety was going to be peace. I thought that once I got to peace, I would lose the anxiety. It would go away.
Okay.
And then I did develop a peaceful life for myself. And yet the anxiety persisted. And I had this kind of message come through that the opposite of anxiety is not actually peace. And I always thought it was, but it isn't. The opposite of anxiety is trust.
Wow. Mm-mm-mm.
And when I sat with that and when I understood what that meant, and when I really sit with it, when I really think, that thought comes up, those feelings come up, and I say, oh, I just need to feel at peace. If I could just feel at peace, I would be able to think clearly. I would be able to act clearly.
So the trust is that no harm will come to you, even in the midst of those false feelings, because that's what anxiety is. It's that false, that's what fear is. It's false evidence appearing real.
And
You
then
know,
when
that,
you say the evidence that we cannot see, in
mm-hmm,
my mind, when you said that, the evidence that I cannot see is now that peaceful feeling inside of me
mm-hmm.
because I chose trust over the fear.
Yes, yes. And trust is a deep word because so many people have hurt you because you trusted them. So that's something like it's like a quicksand or it's like a sticky or slippery slope, that trusting. But the first trust you need is God. And of course, you can't see him. And you're in this situation and dun, 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 there's no Superman, nobody gets you out of the situation. You're still in it. So where is this God that you are supposed to be trusting, who's supposed to love you and doesn't take you out of this situation? That is what people are going through. And I don't have big fat answers for that. I just say, Jesus, I trust you. I love you, and I know you love me more than I love myself, or you love my child, whoever's in the situation that really needs that kind of prayer. You know, you love them more than I do. You will always do that. You will always love them more than I can. Because I'm just a mere human, and you're their creator. I was just the vessel to bring them into the world. I love Kahil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are just yes.
I was
Yes.
immediately picturing it, right? Because we are the
Okay.
archer. We are just the bow, right? And they are the
Yeah.
arrow. I love
Yeah.
Khalil Gibran. He's one of my
Oh my
absolute
gosh.
favorites. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I used to read him all the time. Like when I was 12, I was reading Man Child in the Promised Land. I read that. War and Peace. I just read all the classics. I could not stop reading. I just about read every, what's his name? The guy who writes the scary stuff. Stephen King. One time, I couldn't even get out of the bathtub. Now, this was as an adult. But I started reading in the bathtub, and it was like 6 a.m. in the morning. I kept putting hot water in there, but I couldn't even get out because I couldn't put the book down. I said, no, you know what? This guy's dangerous because there's no way he is even human to have me in a tub for 8 hours. He's so addictive. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop reading him. I'm going to write more because, like Ned Hector, the revolutionary Black soldier, I had to get into the times. I had to think like 1776. I had to think the way George Washington thought. I had to think the way Ned Hector thought. Number one, he had to have gravitas to be a Black man working for the General Washington. And he probably had to deal with, ignorance, even with the troops, because they weren't used to seeing a Black guy working alongside them with the uniform and all that. He was a revolutionary soldier. And what I'm saying is, I had to get into that. Stephen King has to get into his characters to create the madness that he creates. So I'm like, if you have to get that deeply into a character, I'm going to just kind of like experience my own characters. I'm not going to ever be that addicted to somebody else's madness because I'm sure he's half mad. And Tabitha, his wife, and his kids, and all seem normal people and everything. And I'm sure they are. No offense to anybody, but I'm just telling you, somebody who can write that incredibly deep and get into like the madness of his characters and what they're thinking and what they are capable of doing. And there's no end. You know what I mean? There's like no soul, no end. And, he kills children. And yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on. Dogs, your best friend turn into monsters. And I mean, oh. So I just said, I have to turn off everybody else and turn on myself so that I can be a better writer, better perceive my characters, what they think, what they're wearing, what they eat, just like an actor. I mean, we have to perceive, we have to get into our character. We have to have a backstory. We have to have an end story separate from what the script tells you. You've got to create that person as a whole three-dimensional being, not just that flat thing that you just have to recite or memorize lines. Because memorizing lines is not what actors do. I mean, we have to embody the character. And then you have to shake it off. You really do have to get rid of them. And some people have a harder time than others.
With your books. I mean, you're doing that with your characters in your books. It's really, I mean, obviously I haven't read the books yet, right? They're not in the world yet, but just from our conversations, just from
But and was also the issues with Mia. So I really wanted to work with this artist, a friend of mine. We've known each other. We were both in labor with our oldest children together. So our oldest kids are 51. So, and we knew each other before that. And she's just a beautiful, her work is so gentle and butterflies and angels and all that, and little children. And she actually published just a few weeks ago her own storybook with her own angel and her own little fairy and mermaid. It was about a mermaid, and her name is Deborah J. Ryman. So she is a phenomenal woman as well. Her experience with publishers has really taught me. She did not have a good experience. She had somebody who kind of ripped her off and a whole lot of things. Her son helped her, and they just had to put a lot of money out. And so, again, that's why I was attracted to your project, Seed Money, because you need honest people. Okay. Granted, you do have to put, somebody I talked to, she said she begins $5,000. That's how, and that was hybrid. It was a hybrid publisher. I remember them saying, well, as a writer, you've got to have a budget. All I had is words, they're just coming at me, coming on me, and I just had to write. Did not have a budget. I do not have a budget.
That is such the disconnect with I feel with all of us as creatives. I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but for myself included, I just had the words. I didn't have the steps. I didn't understand Amazon or KDP or the ebooks. I didn't have any structural understanding of any of those steps. And I feel that that's the majority of us. We just have the words or the images and not the steps. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Charged her, I think, like $500 for an ISBN. Now that sucker is free. That's free. They charged her another crazy amount for the copyright. And I'm like, that's like between $40 and $60, and you can just do that yourself.
Yes. Yes.
So for me, just kind of connecting with your organization, and I'm talking about the WIP, and then you just feel like you have to walk protected. You have to walk in a safe, with people on either side, like guardian angels protecting you from these other people that just want to rip you off and take advantage of your desire to get your work out, because that's what, no sense keeping everything on the table or in the drawers. You want to get it out, Those days of Emily Dickinson and all these, it's over. We got to be alive, and we got to see your smile as you read our books, And there's leeches, these people that are taking advantage of people. And it's a crying shame. And her precious son just wanted to see his mom's work. And I just want her next book to be successful and want to help guide her toward people like you and honest people where she can, experience her work. That's just important to have a safety net. That's what WIP is. That's what you are, a safety net and someone that respects women's work. And it's just important. My kids will be like, Mom, did you get fooled again? Or did somebody trick you into doing this or doing that? And no, because you do fall for things. You really do. You don't learn falling for it.
There's so much advertising out there that seems legitimate. The email addresses seem legitimate. And it's very hard to tease out what is actually real and what isn't.
Yeah.
I do really hope that people will come and check out our directory, because I'm filling the directory with people who have that same value, that same mission of supporting women. And I really appreciate your wisdom on that. I do want to ask you, just to kind of like wrap this up. We've had such a beautiful time together with so many amazing little bits of information for these people who are listening to this later on. And I just want to ask if you have any little bit of advice that you want to share, maybe with the women who are sitting on the fence. Maybe their books and things are still on the table or in the drawer, and they just need a little bit of encouragement. What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, number one, keep writing. Number two, get in touch with Charissa Bradley and look up WIP, Women in Publishing, because they are a real reason to make things happen. But just to have that ongoing connection is just invaluable. You don't feel like everything's in a vacuum and you're lost in space. You know, you don't feel like you're in outer space anymore. You just feel like you're in outer space. You don't feel like you're normal because you're writing, you've got all this stuff, you have all this creativity going on, and you have no outlet, no place to put it. That's crazy. So yeah, I'm no longer going to hang on to my work, my poetry. I mean, everything's going to have a home. A long, long time ago, I was even published in one of these poetry journals or whatever they used to have. It's number like 25 million somewhere. If you ever opened one of these books and my name is in there. But no, everything that you're working on will help somebody. You know, whether you're just a happy-go-lucky person that never had a problem in your life, thank God. We want to hear that. Jeez, or you've gone through craziness and you're 74 and you're just finally seeing where there's a purpose for your life. And we didn't even talk about the widowhood thing, I mean, me just coming into that being and accepting that, because I told you I'd get back to the word paralyzed. Before I went into the WIP conference, that's exactly how I had been feeling, paralyzed. I couldn't talk. I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything. I was still, I mean, I was like mourning. I don't know what I was doing. It was mourning. It was grief. So, like I said, even recently, I even looked up and taking an online course just so I can understand grief and talk to other people as a grief coach, not a counselor, but a coach. And part of the memoir is going to touch on, grieving. But as I told you, I'm going to call it good grief, gratitude, and grace, because grace is what's holding everything together. Gratitude, like my life is changing. The only reason I was paralyzed is because I thought I was leaving my husband behind. I mean, so it didn't seem fair. And I think that's what a lot of people go through in grieving. That how can I go on? How can I do this? How can I do that? And they're not with me anymore or whatever. But you have to go on. Time is just going to go on. I mean, it really is. It's not, you're not going to be the same. You have to accept the fact that you are a different person. I am totally different from when my husband was alive. I am a totally different person. I'm in a different place. I'm living in a different place. I don't have the same junk around me. And before it was like I just had stuff, stuff, stuff. And now I don't have stuff, stuff, stuff. And that's a good thing. I really purged. I've gotten rid of things that were not useful, that are not helpful. And even if I thought they were useful or helpful, I don't have them anymore. And guess what? I'm living just fine without it too, because I am experiencing my gravitas, which I should put in that G alliteration thing too somewhere, but that'll have to fit in somewhere. But I mean, grief is not good, but if you experience the memories, the waves of sadness, and then there's waves of joy, and then there's waves of regret, and then there's waves of okay. It just goes, it's up and down, you're up and down, you're like on a boat, on a rocky, but all of a sudden, you come to a safe harbor. The memory, the spirit of that person smiles on you and says, it's okay. I love you no matter what state I'm in. I love you. You love me. And if you didn't have love for some crazy reason, the relationship is transformed and it's still love, because that person is with love now. And so it's just love. Love is love. And, your heart is filled with God's goodness, his grace. You're grateful, at least I'm grateful, that I've had those memories, that I have my family. I mean, without him, I wouldn't have had all these beautiful children. So, and I never saw my life anything but beyond it. But now I'm here. I'm beyond it. I'm over that hill, that journey. I've taken that journey for 51 years, raised children, married, the whole thing. And now I don't even have a cat. There's nothing wrong with cats. I love cats. I love dogs. I had animals my entire life. In fact, it took me, I don't know how long just to cook for myself since I've been in this new place. Like, what do I cook? How do I buy food? I'm used to buying food for two, for people that are coming over. All of a sudden, I'm buying for one. I don't want to waste stuff. And I said to one of my sons the other day, I was with his family, and I said, wow, it just feels so good to, sit at the table with people. And he kind of got mad at me. What do you mean, Mom? But I mean, I'm getting used to setting the table for me. I don't always sit in front of the TV because that's not cool. Setting a table, putting flowers on the table, you know, opening up my balcony door when it's a beautiful day, and or even sitting out on the balcony at the table and just watching the things go by and people and clouds and everything. And it's a different life. I'm in a whole different place, literally, figuratively, and emotionally. And instead of trying to hold on to the past and feeling sorry, no, you let it go and you let God move you gently, move you gently through. It's like being born again. It's like through another birth canal. I never said that before, but that's the truth. It's like, it was rough coming through that dark tunnel. It really was. Grief was a dark, scary tunnel. I felt so vulnerable, so alone at first. I mean, I was like falling over things. I mean, I literally was like, I didn't have balance. I didn't have any equilibrium. It was just nuts. And now I'm steady. I'm on solid ground. So yeah, my work is giving me that, like the book of Habakkuk, write your vision, make it plain so that whoever reads it will run to it. So that's where I am. I'm writing my vision. I'm making it plain. I have a purpose. I always had a purpose. And whether it was writing, whether it was motherhood, whether it was wife, and then now it's being a widow, and that's okay too. That is perfect. That's okay. And it's nothing old, poor thing. No, I'm not. It's not a poor thing. I can say I like to eat with people. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't talk to myself because I live by myself. I don't. It's not a good thing. Somebody asked me, "Do you talk to yourself?" And then, no, I don't. Okay. She talks to herself and she lives with people. She talks to herself in the third person. Yeah. Retta, I told you not to do. She's talking to herself. That's a whole other story. But not traveling more. There's no cat. There's no nothing meowing, getting my attention. I was out too long. You didn't leave food out. No, it's just me. And I am enough. I can't even believe how much it takes just to take care of myself. Okay? I'm not nose blind to like cat smell. What's wrong with you coughing and gagging, girl? The house is clean. I mean, it was probably a horror. I didn't even know it. I mean, I'm clean. I was doing everything. But anyway, but now it's just me. And it's like, wow, I am enough. I mean, what? You got to make the bed. Yes, you still have to make the bed. You got to keep things clean. You got to, do all that stuff. And it's cool. But I never just did it for me. That's what I'm trying to say. So this is a whole new world, a whole new world. I mean, it really is. And it's a cool new world, too. It's cool. Yeah. I don't need a date to go to the movies. If some of the people around here, if we can all get together and do something, we'll be fine. I mean, people do that stuff here all the time. I live in a condo. And so, there's little groups and there's the committees and all this stuff. But I haven't joined any yet. But I did go to some of the activities. I'm kind of doing things, and it's a, mixed community. I'm talking about age-wise and every other way too. It's a whole United Nations here. And I love that. I love everything about this place. So I love the fact that I just had peace. I mean, it's peace here. There's safety. Like I said, nobody's shooting outside the back door. I don't have to run after the trash man and then wait a week for the stuff that I forgot to throw out, all the none of that crap, okay? I mean, The hardest part is waiting 2 minutes for the elevator. Oh my gosh. What it took like what 3 seconds? I'm
Oh,
gonna talk to the management, okay? No.
that's amazing.
I love I've never been a lady, I mean, really, like, I've always had to do something. I just have to do something. I have to be creative and I have to follow through with my work. And that's what I'm doing. So I
Well,
have people who make me, I had to be accountable to you. I had to be accountable to whoever, my sisters and brothers in this, in this field that I am in. No procrastination, no excuses, just get it done.
that's so valuable. And I think you kind of touched on a little bit earlier, like having the community aspect of it, like finding the women in publishing community, finding people that you can talk to, finding people
Yeah.
that you can be accountable to and share with. And I just love that. I love everything about our whole entire talk today. I'm going to end our call now. And I just want to say
Well,
thank you again so much for your time and your wisdom. And I've really, really appreciated your being here with us today.
thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Blessings, blessings to everybody, and especially you, Charissa.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode for Project Seed Money. I really hope you enjoyed this interview with Loretta, and please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel. See you for another episode next week. Bye.